What if a simple question from your daughter turned your world upside down? David Baker, a single dad, raises his 9-year-old Olivia in NYC. Their world is upended when Olivia asks a diner waitress, "Maria, are you my mommy?" The question unveils a shared secret, connecting Maria to David's late wife, Sarah, and Olivia in unexpected ways. A past betrayal and shocking truths lead David to question everything he thought he knew. David, a wealthy tech CEO, feels lost despite his success. The loss of his wife, Sarah, still haunts him as he raises Olivia alone. Olivia, full of life, loves to draw. One evening, seeking normalcy, David takes Olivia to Maggie's Place, a local diner. Olivia, drawing, suddenly approaches Maria, a waitress there. "Are you my mommy?" she asks. David is stunned. Maria's reaction is unsettling. Olivia insists Maria looks like the lady in my dreams. The next morning, David returns to the diner, seeking answers. He confronts Maria. "What did Olivia see in you?" David asks. Maria, hesitant, admits a connection. "Your wife, Sarah, and I were close like sisters. When I lost everything, Sarah helped me. She promised to care for my child if anything happened to me." David is floored. Maria explains that Sarah always has been very kind to her. "Why tell me this now?" David asks. Maria says, "Olivia sees something in me. I couldn't keep it hidden." David learns Sarah knew a part of Maria that he never did. David is overwhelmed but needs the whole story. Maria explains, "I was dating a wealthy man, but he abandoned me when I got pregnant. Sarah stepped in, offering support. She promised to care for my daughter if I couldn't." Maria's voice cracks with emotion. "When Sarah died, I felt lost. But seeing Olivia, it felt like fate. Like Sarah was telling me to keep my promise." David sits stunned, the weight of the revelations crushing him. "What do I do?" he asks. Maria says, "I think Olivia needs to know the truth, and I need to help her." David feels immense gratitude for the sacrifices that Sarah did with such little knowledge. He responds with mixed emotions, but an undeniable truth. He can no longer protect Lily from everyone that was part of her life. Maria continued her tale, and with that came the need for David to understand this all. He said he was ready, and she began again. David knew it was not something he had the chance to say no to. Maria paused to show David some old pictures that dated back so long ago. It looked to be before technology. David, now lost for words, just listened to what Maria had to say. He started to feel guilt about not knowing. This was quickly dissolved after the need to focus on his daughter took root again. He didn't know what was coming, but he was more ready than ever. He had a lot more to say, but knew now was not the time. She then said goodbye. James had to make a decision. Was Maria's role in Olivia's life more than a coincidence? Days turn into a blur as David starts seeing how Lily's face would light up every time she looked at Maria. David's sense of control was slipping. Emma started to talk to Lily like she was her own child. What was he thinking? It was on a crisp morning. James was on his way back when the diner bells gave his presence to everyone inside. His pace quickly slowed down as he heard Maria speaking with Leo. Something was up. As she turned to meet his gaze, James realized it was the most broken he had seen Maria in a while. Gus looked at James to have a seat. The conversation was heavy. The tension was immense. It was now or never. "I told you about how Sarah helped me, but I left out something important," Maria began. "The man who left me. He was someone you know." David felt a chill creep down his spine. You said you were with James when that happened?" Maria, now, seemed to try and fight back some tears as she spoke more. This only was the beginning. "Was Mark Harris, David," Maria revealed, her voice barely audible. "He's the one who ruined my life. He's Lily's father." David froze. Mark Harris. David's mind had gone completely blank. He didn't know what to do with this. It only made things worse. What did she have to say? "I've carried that pain with me," Maria confessed. "But I can't pretend anymore. The man who did this to me is your friend." James took the time to sit down. His hands are now shaking. His mind was going all over the place. This was just too much. But why all this time? It was me. That's it. I can't stand being here anymore. He had one thing to do now. He just needed to make sure. That afternoon, David confronted Mark at his office. David walked into his office ready to shout, but found himself speechless at seeing his face. He had to stay collected. "I know the truth, Mark," David said, his voice laced with fury. "About Emma. About everything." Mark, initially surprised, composed himself. He admitted to abandoning Emma, but downplayed his responsibility. "I wasn't ready to be a father," Mark said, trying to justify his actions. David was disgusted. "You destroyed her life, and you never took responsibility." David called him out on every single fault and said he can't do this anymore. He couldn't help but go silent. "Did you ever have any remorse for your wrong actions? Did you not want to atone? I don't want to be part of this. We have been friends for so long." It was all silence as David walked out. "You know nothing about me." He didn't look back. As he was leaving the office, his mind raced. Did you know? Did Lily know all of this and never said anything? I felt so alone. The next morning, Emma and David were talking once again. David, conflicted, relayed Mark's confession and his dismissal. He then asked what next. Maria spoke out some old feelings and then relayed a tale. "Before she died, Clara told me of how she was concerned and wanted to take Lily." David was shocked that he was not told any of this. There was so much to say and so little room to say it. "Did you really think of this?" He knew what had to be done. A knock broke the silence. It was Mark. "What do you have to say?" Mark said much more and relayed how he felt. It was a whole slew of excuses. "You don't get to do this. You can't do this to us. You will not get away with this." It went on and on. It was the same old story. "Just let me go." With another sigh, he was gone. Later, David tells Maria and Lily that Mark was gone. He was done trying to cope with Mark in his life. The past was the past, and nothing would change that. "I want to make a promise." With it came the peace of a new chapter. "We will get through this together." At Maggie's place, David, Maria, and Lily enter, hand in hand. They were smiling to be done with everything. They order the usual and look out at the sun. A sense of peace overcomes them. The family had a new beginning. They were home. What was in store for them now? Weeks turned into months. David, Maria, and Olivia settled into a comfortable rhythm. Maria moved into David's penthouse, not as a replacement for Sarah, but as a partner, a co-parent, a friend. Olivia blossomed, thriving on the added love and attention. David watched, a knot of anxiety slowly unwinding in his chest. He started feeling whole again. But even in this newfound peace, shadows of the past lingered. David couldn't shake the unease that Mark's words had stirred. "You don't know the full story." He tried to dismiss it, focusing on the present. But the thought persisted, a seed of doubt planted in fertile ground. He found himself observing Maria, searching for clues, for any hint of a hidden agenda. He hated himself for it, for betraying the trust they were building. But the fear was a stubborn beast. One afternoon, Olivia, engrossed in drawing, asked a question that stopped David cold. "Daddy, did Mommy ever talk about my real daddy?" David froze. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Olivia shrugged, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Maria says Mark is my real daddy. Did Mommy ever say anything about him?" David's heart pounded. Maria had told Olivia about Mark? He hadn't been ready for that conversation. He hadn't even fully processed it himself. He glanced at Maria, who looked equally surprised. "Olivia," Maria began gently, "it's a little complicated. Your mommy and I were very close, and she always wanted what was best for you." "But did she talk about Mark?" Olivia persisted. David knelt beside Olivia, taking her hand. "Sweetheart, Mommy loved you very much. That's all that matters. Some things are hard to understand, but you need to know that you are loved." Olivia nodded, seemingly satisfied, but David could see the confusion still lingering in her eyes. After Olivia went to play, David turned to Maria, his voice tight. "Why did you tell her about Mark?" Maria sighed. "She asked, David. I couldn't lie to her. She deserves to know the truth." "But was that the right time? She's only 9, and she's smart and perceptive. She sensed something was off. I just gave her a simple answer. She'll ask more when she's ready." Maria was also getting tired of keeping the past a secret, and, for it was starting to be clear, she continued to say, it would be better to tell her now than to be surprised later. David knew she was right, but it didn't make it any easier. That night, after Olivia was asleep, David confessed his lingering unease to Maria. I still don't understand why Sarah never told me about her plans for Lily. And Mark's words keep haunting me. You don't know the full story. Maria took his hand, her eyes filled with empathy. I know it's hard, David, but Sarah did what she thought was best. She loved you, and she loved Lily. Maybe she didn't want to burden you with the past. And as for Mark, maybe he was just trying to stir things up to justify his own actions. Maybe, David said, but he wasn't convinced. The following week, David received an unexpected call from Sarah's lawyer, a woman named Ms. Eleanor Vance. Mr. Baker, I need to discuss some matters regarding Sarah's estate. There are some documents I believe you should see. David hesitated. He thought everything had been settled years ago. What kind of documents? It's best if we discuss it in person, Mr. Baker. Can you come to my office next week? Intrigued and apprehensive, David agreed. At Ms. Vance's office, surrounded by dusty law books and the scent of aged paper, David learned the truth. Ms. Vance presented him with a sealed envelope, marked to be opened only in the event of my death. Inside was a letter from Sarah, written shortly before the accident. David's hands trembled as he unfolded the letter. Sarah's familiar handwriting swam before his eyes. My dearest David, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer here. I'm so sorry. I know this will be incredibly painful for you and Olivia. There are some things I need to tell you, things I should have told you long ago, but I was afraid. I know about Mark. I know about his relationship with Maria. She told me everything. I know the pain he caused her, and I know that Lily is his daughter. I wanted to protect Olivia from this knowledge, but I also knew that she deserved to know the truth. That's why I planned to adopt her. I wanted to give her a stable and loving home, regardless of what happened to Maria. I also knew that you might have trouble accepting Maria into our lives, and I didn't want to burden you with that decision. I trusted Mark to be there for you and Olivia to help you through this. I was wrong. I was so worried about you, but I never saw how much of a monster he was. Please, David, forgive me for keeping this from you. I did what I thought was best. Trust Maria. She loves Olivia with all her heart. And please, don't let the past destroy your future. With all my love, Sarah. David sat in stunned silence, the letter shaking in his hands. Sarah had known all along. She had carried this secret, this burden, for years, protecting him, protecting Olivia, protecting Maria. And she had trusted Mark, only to be betrayed. Ms. Vance then handed him another document. It was a legal document Sarah had prepared, outlining her intentions to adopt Olivia and granting Maria guardianship in the event of Sarah's death. However, it was never formally filed. Sarah never filed this document, Ms. Vance explained. She likely wanted to discuss it with you first. But David finished the sentence in his mind. But she never got the chance. David now understood. Sarah hadn't kept the secret to hurt him, but to protect him. She had seen the potential for pain, for conflict, and she had tried to shield him from it. And she had trusted Maria, believing in her capacity to love and care for Olivia. A wave of guilt washed over David. He had doubted Maria, had questioned her motives, had allowed Mark's words to poison his mind. He had been so blinded by his own grief and fear that he had failed to see the truth that was right in front of him. He stood up abruptly, thanking Ms. Vance and rushing out of the office, a sense of urgency driving him. He needed to find Maria. He needed to tell her he knew the truth, the whole truth. He needed to apologize for his doubts, for his mistrust, and he needed to thank her for loving Olivia, for honoring Sarah's memory, for being the woman Sarah had always believed she could be. Back at the penthouse, he found Maria and Olivia in the living room, laughing over a game of checkers. The sight of them, bathed in the warm afternoon light, filled David with a profound sense of love and gratitude. He knelt beside them, taking both of their hands. I know, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I know everything. Maria looked at him, her eyes searching his. You do. David nodded, his gaze locking with hers. Sarah told me, in a letter, she planned to adopt Olivia. She knew about Mark. She knew everything. Tears welled up in Maria's eyes. "Oh, David, I'm so sorry," David continued, his voice breaking. "I doubted you. I questioned you. I let Mark's words poison my mind. I was wrong. You're everything Sarah believed you could be. And I'm so grateful for you, for loving Olivia, for being here for us." Maria squeezed his hand, her tears flowing freely. "It's okay, David. I understand. It's been a lot to process. But all that matters is that we're together now." Olivia, sensing the emotion, wrapped her arms around both of them. "I love you both," she said, her voice small but sincere. David pulled them close, holding them tight. In that moment, surrounded by the love of his daughter and the woman who had become his partner, his family, he finally understood. The past couldn't be erased, but it could be healed. And the future, though uncertain, was filled with hope, with love, and with the promise of a new beginning. The journey wasn't over, but they were on it together.